Peter Scapillato is a Toronto-based carpenter and FIA-certified builder, specializing in deep energy retrofits that emphasize both environmentally sustainable and high-performance building standards. In this presentation with the Green Building Learning Zone at the Green Living Show, Peter talks about Greening Homes' approaches to responsible renovations.
Welcome. My name is Peter Scapillato. I'm a carpenter at Greening Homes, and today I'm going to talk about responsible renovations. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about Greening Homes, and then I'm going to discuss our 5 pillars. Next, I'm going to go over 2 case studies in which those pillars are put into action. Finally, I'm going to discuss briefly some of the challenges and solutions that we deal with on a daily basis in the renovation world. And then finally, questions. So a little bit about Greening Homes. Greening Homes was founded in 2007 by Chris Phillips. He founded it with the hopes that it would be a catalyst for change in an industry that is often wasteful. And to this day, Chris strives for that change, and as do all the employees at Greening Homes. So first, I'll discuss our 5 pillars. Now, our 5 pillars represent the core values of Greening Homes, and they really are the foundation in which Greening Homes operates. They're responsible waste management, careful and informed material selections, efficient design and use of resources, ensuring healthy indoor air quality, and smart transportation to and from site. So we strive to maximize these pillars on every one of our jobs, regardless of scope and size. So the first pillar is responsible waste management. So at the beginning of every project, we design a custom waste management plan, which ensures that all building materials that are recyclable and reusable do not end up in the landfill. So why do we do this? Well, the construction industry is immensely wasteful. So this is just an example right here. You can see all the cardboard and plastic that could have been recycled, but instead is in a landfill. And as you can see, sadly, only 13% of waste is diverted in Ontario alone. Now, with this graph here, if this sort of continues along with other garbage practices, by 2050, we're going to need 16 new landfills in Ontario alone, which is a huge number. Our second pillar is careful and informed material selections. So we believe that a healthy home is the sum of its parts, and therefore those parts should be carefully selected. So we accomplish this by making careful and informed material selections. That means staying actively up to date on materials that are green and the real deal. Things that are greenwashed will not end up in your home, which is quite common. Just because something says green or eco on it does not mean that it's eco or green. Our second pillar is efficient design and use of resources. So this is all about reducing energy waste. So as we all know, natural resources are finite, and so the use of these resources is very critical. And so the best way to do this is, one, we consult with experts in the field, whether it's in plumbing, window installation, HVAC. We make sure that you have the best and most efficient. We install smart fixtures wherever we can, whether it's electricity, plumbing, etc. An example here is a power pipe. So the main coil in the middle is wastewater coming down. It heats up the water that coils around it, which then goes to your hot water tank. So by the time that water reaches the hot water tank, it's already been heated up 25% by the wastewater. So it reduces energy use. That's just one example of what we do. Our fourth pillar is ensuring healthy indoor air quality. So this is complemented by our second pillar, which is the choice of materials we use. A staggering figure here is that 90% of our time is spent indoors. This always blows me away. And the indoor environment is actually full of toxins such as mold, VOCs, and other pollutants from outside. So the building materials we use and the ventilation systems we use are critical in keeping those pollutants down. The fifth pillar that we follow is smart transportation to and from site. These are actual photos from our site. It does not look like a typical construction site. Usually you're going to see 5 or 6 big trucks out front. We typically use bikes. TTC and our project managers use electric vehicles. So we really strive to reduce our carbon emissions, and also for deliveries, we have a no idle policy. So next, I'm going to talk about these pillars in action. I'm going to cover 2 projects that we've recently completed and show you how these pillars are implemented. So the first is a house in Leslieville. This was a 3rd-story addition and a retrofit of the 1st and 2nd floor. It was unique in the sense that the neighbors were also renovating their house at the exact same time. So we were able to literally see through the wall at a traditional building company and see how they were doing things compared to our approach. It was quite interesting. And so these are some of the photos of the final product. Now I like to show these because I like to emphasize the fact that just because it's green doesn't mean it's going to be drab or boring. Green can be beautiful. And this is the 3rd-story addition. Office, bathroom, master bedroom. So in terms of our first pillar for this project, we had a 26% pre-diversion rate. So that means 26% of the waste of this project was pre-diverted on site and recycled. We had a 64% recycling rate, so any of the materials that went to a landfill, 64% of them were recycled at the landfill and diverted. So overall, we had, of all the waste, 81% of it was diverted and did not end up in a landfill. So that was the equivalent of 17.1 tons, which is roughly the weight of 3 Asian elephants. So quite a bit of waste was diverted from the landfill because of our efforts. For careful and informed material selections, this is our second pillar. These are some of the brands and standards that we use and follow. You should check out FSC, they're just behind us here. So these are some of the materials we use in the house in action. The framing lumber is FSC certified. We used a rock wool insulation, which is recyclable. We use some of our zero VOC airtight liquid membrane for air tightness. And with our assembly here, which is fully vented, we reached a R value of 45. Ontario requires an R value of 31, so we surpassed it by 45%. Here's some more examples of our air tightness work. These are window bucks, so the window actually goes in there, and then it's tied into the rest of the house, creating an airtight seal. These pink marks are all penetrations that went through the sheathing when we were putting on the exterior insulation. They're sealed, again, making the house airtight. And here's an example of the buck in place before the window goes in. And between the buck and the masonry, we put insulation and another liquid membrane that makes it airtight. On the 1st and 2nd floor for insulation, we use a dense pack insulation, cellulose insulation, which is recycled paper that's treated for fire and insects. And we use a smart vapor barrier on top of that, which actually breathes, so it allows moisture to either dry in or out, depending on the season. And on the 3rd floor, we use rock wool bat insulation. And again, the framing is all FSC certified. And for paint and primer, we use zero VOC paint and primer. The floors are FSC certified. And the drywall is Green Guard, which is 99% recycled, post-consumer recycled drywall. So in terms of efficient design and use of resources, new HRV went in, which was hidden behind a panel here, which supplies fresh air to the 3rd floor. It also heats the incoming air with the waste air that goes out through a membrane. It's quite an efficient system. We replaced all the pot lights on the 1st and 2nd floor with new LED high-efficiency ones, and they also ended up on the 3rd floor, which reduced the energy consumption of the lights by 80%. And based off these efforts, we estimate an annual savings of $904. In terms of healthy indoor air quality, no spray foam, absolutely no foam was used on this project. The sealants that were used were 100% Eco-Logo certified, red list free, and or zero VOC, so no off-gassing and friendly to the environment. Some other healthy features: the flooring was completely formaldehyde free, and throughout the duration of the project we use a HEPA air scrubber, so this not only keeps our team's lungs safe, but it also reduces the amount of pollutants that stay in the house. Finally, pillar 5, in terms of smart transportation, our project manager for this project used an electric vehicle. We, out of a team of 3, 2 of them commuted by bike or TTC. And with those efforts, we reduced the number of car trips by 46 compared to another renovation of this size, which is the equivalent of 12% of CO2 savings. So it's quite a significant number. So this isn't really part of the pillars, but it shows that our efforts and being green can actually make the house really efficient in terms of heat loss. So this is our house on the left. You can see a nice flat bed of snow and no icicles, right? So that means no heat is getting out. But as you work your way to the right, that other renovation that happened, you can see the icicles start to build up and the patchy snow, which means there's a ton of heat loss going on there. And they renovated at the exact same time that we did. So here's the big take home from this project. Based off our pillars, we saved an estimated 3,895 kilograms of carbon dioxide. So that amount did not enter the atmosphere. And that's the equivalent of carbon that 101 trees would remove from the air that we breathe during their lifetime. So it's quite a significant number. So the second project is in High Park. This was a 3rd-story renovation. It's 3 bedrooms that were totally gutted. These are some photos of the finished product. Again, green can be beautiful. So everything you see is new. So in terms of our first pillar, we had a 47% pre-diversion rate. So 47% of the waste was sorted on site by our team and recycled or reused in the project itself. At the landfill, 58% of that recycling, or 58% of that waste was recycled. This equaled a 70% total diversion. So 70% of the waste did not end up in the landfill, which is the equivalent of 10.2 tons, so 2 Asian elephants. These are some of the materials and standards that we used and followed. So here you can see a smart vapor retarder that we used called Intello Plus. It's 100% recyclable, so any offcuts that we didn't use elsewhere, we could recycle it. The framing lumber is FSC certified. And the tape, again, is recyclable, and any caulking we used in this process was also zero VOC. Another example of our high-performance window detailing. So that's the window buck before it goes in. It gets treated with a liquid membrane on the seams and any of the holes, and then it gets a complete cover in a liquid membrane flashing, makes it watertight. The window is then inserted, and it's surrounded with an expanding tape that makes it airtight. Then that buck goes into the opening, and then it's tied in with the Intello that you can see here, and it gets taped. Airtight, watertight, energy efficient. So the flooring is FSC certified. We used some of the leftovers to make like a textured bedroom nook. So there was minimal waste in terms of the flooring, which is FSC certified. With wide plank flooring, you have to also glue it down. So we used a zero VOC glue. The drywall is again recycled, post-consumer recycled drywall. We use reclaimed barn boards for the faux collar ties. And they have venting skylights here, which open and have an automatic blind in them, blackout blind, that are powered by solar. In terms of framing, again, FSC certified. For insulation, we used a stone mineral wool, rock wool. On the masonry areas, we used a continuous insulation and then bat insulation, so there's no thermal bridging with the outside. In the cathedral ceilings, we used bat insulation, and it's same with the knee wall. Pillar 3, efficient design and use of resources. An ERV was installed. So this differs from the HRV that I discussed in the last one in that this one also handles moisture control. A new space pack high efficiency AC was installed, so way less energy is now consumed compared to the one that they had before. Some of the other efficiencies to note are the rock wool insulation we used, which was put into all the existing roof and masonry walls. The Intello Plus smart vapor control. And so based off this, there's an annual estimated savings of 570. For indoor air quality, FSC, formaldehyde-free flooring. Again, the glue I noted, 0 VOC. The ERV, fresh air. The venting skylights, which passively flush the house for the stack effect. 98% of the sealants and adhesives we used were either Eco Logo, Red List certified, or 0 VOC. And with this house as well, 0 VOC paints and primers. In terms of our smart transportation, project manager used one electric vehicle. Out of a team of 4, 3 of them used bikes and or TTC. So this reduced the number of car trips that you would see on a typical construction site of this size by 133, which is huge. So that's an equivalent of 42% savings in CO2 by kilograms that did not enter our atmosphere. So what's the big take home from this project? Well, we saved an estimated 6,597 kilograms of carbon dioxide from going into the atmosphere, which is the equivalent of 171 trees that would take to remove that from the air we breathe. So some of the challenges that we face with sticking with our pillars primarily come from subtrades who are not part of our company, but we work with. They often don't know what's recyclable and or are sort of in the mindset, well, they're working, so they just throw it away quick, right, without thinking. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with behavioral economics, but we've been trying with some of it with nudging. So simplification, signage, making it easy for people. So this is one of our strategies here, which is clearly labeling garbage and recycling. So if a subtrade is working in an area, we put these bins with them. They turn around, it's easily identifiable which is which, and it's worked. And the results have been pretty promising so far. And of course, anyone that works with us, we don't use coffee cups on site. We always have thermoses. We have litterless lunches, so that's also a big thing for us. Any questions? Yes? So the question was, how do we compare to sort of a traditional company in terms of cost because of our focus on the environment? It's really difficult to give you a concrete sort of figure because it really depends on the nature of the project, the scope. So typically what we try to do is we emphasize the building envelope, which is perhaps the most important aspect of a house. And then we would recommend sort of spending less on, say, a fixture that, you know, $1,000 fixture versus a $500 fixture, you're not going to notice the difference, right? And so you take that savings and you put it elsewhere where it really matters. One thing that our president likes to say is, well, what's the square footage of a shopping cart? Well, it depends on what you put in it, right? So the main cost with our work would be the labor in terms of detailing. But the client ends up making that money back in the long run because the house becomes so airtight and energy efficient that your heating bills, your electricity bills drop significantly. So it's an investment up front, yes, but a long-term savings for sure. Yeah. So you'd like to know what an HRV does, basically? So the HRV provides fresh air to the house. So when you make a house super airtight, you've got to supply it with fresh air. Older homes were really leaky, and so there was always air coming and going, but when it's airtight, you got to provide it with the air. So what an HRV does is it sucks fresh air from the outside, and as it shoots out the exhaust air, there's a membrane in between those two. The exhaust air, which is warm, heats the fresh air coming in through that membrane. And so by the time that fresh air reaches the room, it's already been preheated by that exhaust air. So it reduces the cost of heating it. These machines are really high efficiency, so they don't use a lot of energy. And it provides fresh air for circulation. So it does multiple things. And an ERV, which is similar, heats the room, but it also handles moisture control as well. HRV doesn't handle moisture. So. Yeah, it is energy efficient. So some houses, passive houses, for example, that use HRVs don't have furnaces. They don't need furnaces. So their one sort of main thing is the HRV, which costs very little. Any other questions? All right, well, thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.